Victor, thank you so much for joining us today. You work for a very, very exciting startup that is called Recycleye. In actual fact, you're the owner of the startup or the founder. So would you mind just giving us a little bit of a background on what Recycleye actually does?
Absolutely. Well, first, thanks a lot for having us, Ellen. At Recycleye, we're trying to bring transparency to the waste industry. So if today I sell you a barrel of oil, you know exactly what you're buying. If I sell you a ton of plastic, is it 70% pure? Is it 80% pure? Maybe I'm going to spray some water on top of it because you're going to buy it off me on a weight basis. And all this friction just means that we're not moving towards this world of circularity. So my background, actually, I used to work for Goldman Sachs. I resigned from my job there to start a PhD in computer vision applied to waste, and that essentially led to the beginning of Recycleye. The early days was just myself and my co-founder in a garage, literally going into the high street bins of Bournemouth to get sort of samples for our waste system, which was quite of a change. But since then, we've been very grateful to obviously have some of the support of Recycleye from the UK government and also recently closed a venture-backed fund. That now we're a team of 14 mission-driven technologists and creatives really trying to essentially replicate the traceability we see in today's supply chains back into our removal chains, because that's the only way we'll ever be able to loop the two together.
Brilliant. That sounds really interesting. And how do you go about it? What's the, sort of the technology that you use?
Yeah, so at the core of what we do is computer vision. What's great about computer vision is you can use a very cheap sensor, i.e. a camera, something like you have on your phone. The alternative in today's facilities is near-infrared sensors, and those can cost between sort of £50,000 up to £100,000. So it's not going to be a solution for sort of the ubiquitous tracking of waste. But if you use a camera, yeah, they're sort of £10. But what you need is smart in sort of processing, and so we really replicate the way the human brain works. If you look at a can of Coke, you know it's an aluminium can, and you don't need sort of an X-ray sensor to detect that. Equally, you can even tell the brand without reading a barcode or an RFID. And it's very much that ability that's uniquely human that we're replicating in neural networks. So it's a lot of the technology that's also behind driverless cars today or facial recognition for, say, your smartphone.
And then just so that I understand, so then the vision recognizes that it is a Coca-Cola aluminum can, and then what happens next?
Exactly. So it detects all the items in a waste stream, your bottles, your HDP milk bottle, your PET bottles, cardboard, paper, etc. It's very, very varied. And then we do two things. The first is the waste facilities can, for the first time, actually know what they're sorting out. And so they can start doing things like dynamic pricing, charging a client that brings you sort of 90% paper that's worthless more than one that brings you 90%, say, aluminium that's of super high value to you. You can also start to do loads of dynamic optimizations within your plant. And then the final thing, once you know where items are and what they are, we're also working with partners to develop robotic systems to actually sort out the materials into their sort of pure batches. And I think the whole aim of all of this is really, we have this motto at the company that waste doesn't exist. It's just material in the wrong place. And that is true for every type of waste. So long as you're able to reduce the cost of sorting enough, then you reach that threshold where, yeah, waste will no longer exist because it will have value when you sort it out.
I love that, Victor. Waste doesn't exist. It's just material in the wrong space. That is so true, isn't it? And such a change of thinking that we really need nowadays, going back from this linear process that we have, actually looking at more circularity.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. So if you think about some of our listeners, so that might be Microsoft employees, or it might be small businesses, or even some corporates, if you'd like them to have one takeaway, what would it be?
I think learn as much as you can about the recycling industry and be very critical when you think about it. Don't sort of take sort of information at face value, because we're seeing a lot of problems actually created by people trying to do the right thing, but not taking an ecosystem level approach. And by that, I mean, for example, today we see the emergence of bioplastics. everybody thinks are great because they're bio and biodegradable, but at the ecosystem level, they're actually terrible. We're designing items now not for reusability or recyclability. We're almost designing them knowing that they'll end up in the environment, which is a problem because now when they actually end up in our recycling facilities, they don't actually get recycled. Because who wants a compostable PET in your PET bag? You had your pure PET and now it's actually getting contaminated. So it's loads of little examples like that that are sort of not really helping the industry move forwards. And I think key takeaway was they take an ecosystem approach to everything we do. And another such example is paper bags. A lot of people saying, plastic bags are bad, let's do paper bags. Paper bags are worse because if you take that ecosystem approach, you realize, well, actually, we're probably cutting down a lot more trees to create the paper bag. Yes, if it ends up in the environment, it's maybe not as bad. It is still bad because often they're bleached and you have sort of a lot of coloring. A plastic bag has zero environmental impact when you manufacture it. Like it's a drop of oil that just gets so smoothly put into a piece of a bag, and I've seen machines they sort of produce a mile a minute, so it's very efficient. Obviously the problem is downstream, but we shouldn't always think about the ocean and the turtles and the dying fish, but again, think about the ecosystem level approach.
So it's definitely not as straightforward and as an easy solution as we would probably hope.
But I think the key is designing for recyclability. So if paper bags if you design a paper bag that is recyclable, great, but often the fibers start reducing. And at the end of the day, PET can be fantastic. Like the PET bottle can be recycled so many times that it is a great product, but it's just making sure we built that infrastructure to do it.
And we recycle. I think this is probably another one. Don't throw it in the normal trash, but actually throw it in the recycling bin. That's wonderful, Victor. I'm super excited what the future holds for you guys. Thank you for being part of the little podcast today, and all the best.
Thank you very much, Ellen.